I'm going to call the meeting to order. We will start with a roll call. We have Steve Whitman, Jack Scarborough, Bonnie Sears, Bridget Powers, myself, Rebecca Hansen, John Ranlett, Chris Buckley, and Marianne Barnsley. First up, we're going to review the minutes from the work session and the site visit on October 4th. I was not in attendance at this meeting. Any comments or edits for the minutes from the last work session?
On page 3 of 3, unfinished and other business, item number 5, it says John Randlett stated that Chris would represent the planning board. I do not believe I stated that. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe somebody can.
Somebody did.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know
I remember
somebody
that.
got-
Right.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too, because I don't know if it was actually stated.
I was thinking Brian was talking in generalities and said that you go ahead and do that.
I wasn't going to get you a name, someone to talk with.
Yeah, at the co-op.
Yeah. So could we say that Chris can
Chris
represent
would
the-
represent the planning board.
Okay, so just
Yeah.
take out the, what you said.
Right.
Okay. And I can get this to, I'll just give these to.
Perfect.
Yeah. Any other comments or corrections on the minutes?
Top of that page, 6:24 PM, public hearing is open. The second line, application, it's misspelled.
Okay.
And actually, I wasn't there, but number 5, where John commented, it should be BMPs instead of BPMs, if it's an abbreviation.
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about beats per minute.
Something like that.
Different meeting.
Yep. Anyone else?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
And just so the board knows, Bridget is taking the non-recording off of her, or just the off her non-recording secretary status, and she's keeping track of the motions and when the public hearing opens, so we will be nicer to her than we are to Brian. And get
Appreciate
everything
it.
Okay, oh, and I did want to say, 1, 2, 3, we have 7 of us here. Steve, I just want to acknowledge that as an alternate, you won't be voting, but we welcome your comments and you as part of the discussion, so.
Do we vote on that last motion?
Oh. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the meeting as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Oops, not me, sorry, abstaining. All right, I guess I don't miss too many meetings. All righty. That,
I'm making a mess already.
you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, so we've got 2 things on the agenda this evening. One is a one-lot subdivision that we'll deal with first, and then we do have a non-binding conceptual presentation for the Riverside Landing area. I just wanted to let the public know that this is not a public hearing, so we won't be opening up a public hearing about this non-binding conceptual presentation. If we have time at the end of the meeting, we may be able to open up for public comments at the end of the meeting, but this is not the time when we're opening up a public hearing for this. It's not an application, so it's not a public hearing for that project. All right. So first up, we have a one-lot subdivision from the parent parcel, PID number 221-044, 74 Thurlow Street, subdividing out a proposed parcel of 1.23 acres for the new lot and reserving 11.67 acres for the parent parcel. All parcels will front on Thurlow Street in the single-family residential zone. Do you have the applicant or a representative from the applicant to present about this project?
name's Ken Twitchell. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not really sure what I'm
Okay,
doing.
so, no worries. So what we need to hear from you, so we'll first maybe get a brief presentation from you about what you're trying to do. If
Okay.
you have, we all have the map in front of
have
us,
some
but if you
extra
could
ones
explain
if
that
you
a little
need
more
some more.
thoroughly. But first, what we need to do is just assess the completeness of your application. So if we can get a brief presentation, the board will ask any questions regarding the completeness of the application, and then we can get more into the specifics.
I'll let you do it because you've done it before. But
What we're looking to do here is, we subdivided off a section of our land for our son to build a house. What he's proposing to build is a single-story with a full basement, walkout basement, two-car garage, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, your normal house. Nothing big and fancy, but in keeping with the character of the neighborhood.
Okay.
I think you all have copies of the map, right? Okay.
Are there any
And
questions you'd like to ask?
does anyone need the sort of more detail explained out from the map that we have? You have a bigger one
Copy of
that you
it.
could sort of point out to us? It looks like you maybe have a larger one that we
this is
could.
not the large, that's just the house plan, actually.
Oh, the house plan, we don't need to, that is beyond, single-family residential is beyond our scope of,
Hold on, sorry. There we go. Okay. You wanna hold that up?
Madam Chair, this isn't this is a
Do you guys want a
subdivision.
copy
We're
of
just
it?
coming.
this is a subdivision, a minor
yeah.
subdivision.
So it has nothing to do with a.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
do those.
Yeah.
This is the existing lot, obviously. This is the lot being cut out. Ivy Lane is right here. It will be right in this front corner of the lot. We'd like to, there's a existing, sort of not really a driveway, but just an access onto our property from right here that we'd like to use as his driveway because the grade of the land. He built the house right about up in here at the top of the, it's kind of a knoll. So that would make the most sense as far as the geography of the land goes. So that's what we'd like to do.
And you're in the house on the
We're
parent
in this
parcel?
house right
Okay,
here.
and you have a driveway that doesn't cut through the subdivided portion?
Correct. Our driveway is right here, it's below. This lot here is where our house is, this is all just woods. This is the existing Ivy Lane, that's been there for years. We prefer to come off of that, but whatever works.
Any questions from the board? We'll open it up for a public hearing after we make a ruling on the completeness of this application.
It's a big guy. Like a wall.
Any comments questions from the board about the completeness of this application?
Make a motion, we accept the application as complete.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of accepting this application as complete signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So, let's see. One note we got from Brian was something about a driveway easement? Do you guys know about a driveway easement?
We do.
Could you explain that?
Sure. Up on Ivy Lane, there's, it's a shared driveway, and there are 2 houses on the lane, and they both use Ivy Lane to get to their properties. And so Ken would follow through and do the same exact thing.
Okay.
Either that, if it wasn't acceptable that way, we could always go up our driveway, but Ivy Lane is easier.
It's more of a natural flow.
Okay. So it sounds like we need to make sure that that easement continues.
Yes, it will.
So, as a
Yep.
condition of the
It'll be put in
subdivision.
as a condition, yeah.
Any questions from the board before I open it up to a public hearing?
Who would you talk to about using Ivy Lane, and have you done that?
I
We haven't met
not.
with the owners.
Oh, so it's,
Yeah, we own Ivy Lane right now, so
Oh,
we're,
okay.
we're actually giving him that piece of property.
Good terms. Most of the time.
That's good.
So is there an issue with the bridge crossing over the stream?
It's not. a-
There's no bridge,
It's a
culvert.
culvert, yeah.
And there was a sign up at one point.
right.
It's just, there was, when they did the work on the road above it,
Okay.
at one point there was a little bit of a sinkhole going on, but it really is pretty much resolved itself, I think.
All right.
But we put the signs up just to.
Make sure
warn
people are aware of
It's not a
it.
good idea to park on it, you know,
Right.
just, I don't want somebody getting stuck in there and then saying, gee, I'm stuck. I just figured it was, you know, prudent.
Any other questions from the board before I open it up for a public hearing? All right, it is 6:41. Is there anyone that would like to speak of any nature about this project? Please come up to the podium and state your name.
Ken Huser, I'm an abutter to the property. I'm just curious, is this to be owner occupied or rental?
Yes.
It will be owner occupied.
When- Okay,
He will be the owner, yeah.
that answers my question. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
It will not be a rental, it'll be a single family home.
Thank you.
Anyone else? It is 6:42. And I'm going to close the public hearing. That was actually long compared to some. All right, other questions from the board?
I'd like to make a motion, we approve this.
Second.
And we're approving this, just to be clear, with, to require a driveway easement in the parent
Yes.
parcel? Okay.
And will we talk with Brian? I believe
Talk to
he's-
Brian about that. So Bridget, we're moving to approve this, yeah, you got it.
Good secretary.
Non-recording. All right, all those in
Who
favor?
seconded that? Sorry. Jack?
John Rennet.
Guys are just following it back and forth with the motions. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Doctor speak for something.
All right, next up, an administrative matter. I don't even know if I need to read this into the record, but Will Davis, agent for Mike McGinley, owner of PID number 212-046, will offer a non-binding conceptual presentation of a site plan for development of a supermarket at Riverside Landing.
Have some updated half size for you all on minor change to the conceptual plan you had from last week. Also, some renderings of the proposed building.
right,
So,
whenever you're ready.
yeah, all right. So, like, my name is Will Davis. I'm with Horizons Engineering. Good to see you guys all again. I'm here tonight representing Mike McGinley and Riverside Landing. This conceptual presentation for Market Basket on Tenny Mountain Highway. Mike's here as well as John Matthews with Market Basket, if there's any questions for them. I can just provide a kind of a brief overview of what we're proposing here, and then maybe we can have a little discussion. Just to orient everyone, it's Tenny Mountain Highway, Highland Street here, existing uses, McDonald's, Bank of New Hampshire, Fairfield Inn and Suites, and the State Liquor Store here. We've also shown the Irving Convenience Store and Gas Station, which is under construction currently and was previously approved here. Then we have the 69,000 square foot proposed grocery store here, Market Basket, with associated parking. The main driveway here, which was approved as part of the Irving project, was set up for both uses, so that drive remains unchanged from what you've seen previously. Access will be off of Tenny Mountain Highway here, as well as the existing access, and then going in front of, or in between these two buildings, and can access the site that way. All of the aisles and access ways are set up for large truck traffic. Loading will happen in the back here. Let's see. We have several islands and green spaces that are provided in the parking lot. It's a large parking lot, but we are going to be providing a landscaping plan with the final application. Site lighting will be handled in a similar fashion to the other sites here, with downlighting, LED pole mounted fixtures, similar to the rest of them. Sidewalk will be connected from this existing walk that follows from the hotel, crosses in front of the liquor store here. We'll pick up from that existing sidewalk, turn it around to a tip down crosswalk to what will function as a sidewalk in front of the full length of the Market Basket. There's also sidewalk along this side of the building. So we'll be providing connectivity to the entire site inside here, from end to end. We aren't showing utilities in this plan, but I can give you a brief overview of what we're intending. The sewer main and water main were extended as part of the previous project. They go right in front of the building here. Water is intended to be looped behind a loop service with, I believe the service will be in the back. Sewer will come out of the front into the main, and then electrical communications will be served from the transformer over in this end back to the back, where we'll have another transformer and generator pad for backup power there. Drainage. So there's a lot of impervious surfaces here. We're intending to continue with the strategy we've been employing on previous sites here, which is underground chambers for infiltration. We'll set the parking lot up with a series of catch basins for collection, and pipe to an underground chamber system, where we'll detain and infiltrate a large portion of the runoff. We're going to need an alteration of terrain permit for this, so we'll be providing a full drainage report. We're working on the drainage right now, but I think we're going to end up with a pretty large galley under the main parking lot that'll take most of the roof, if not all of it, and the main parking lot. That will then be discharged to the back, and then the side and the rear parking and loading areas will probably have another separate chamber system in the back. As I said, all that'll be to DES standards for alteration of terrain. I'd also, I guess, take an opportunity now to, Brian had asked us to kind of take a look at the master plan and how this project might relate to the master plan. And I took a look briefly through some sections. You know, it talks about the fact that Plymouth is a regional hub for retail shopping, and would like to continue down that path. Talks about the fact that Tenny Mountain Highway is an ideal place for commercial development. You know, residents were surveyed. It sounds like the majority of people, if they had to pick a place in town for commercial development to be happening, it was on Tenny Mountain Highway. Obviously, it's already well developed through here. It talks about certain sections of Tenny Mountain Highway, and in this section in particular, it says, you know, that it's mostly suitable for high intensity development and commercial development, with one caveat that it is in the floodplain. You know, this site is in the floodplain, but the benefit of this site is that we have a flood compensation plan that's been previously approved. We're working under that same plan of development, so it's set up for development in the floodplain, and of course we'll be treating and detaining all of our stormwater that discharges there as well. And I also, you know, it also talks about economic development. Obviously, a nice new grocery store like this is going to provide a additional tax base. It will employ folks, and it talks about encouraging different types of commercial development on Main Street and Tenny Mountain Highway. You know, on Main Street, the master plan envisions encouraging businesses that obviously require a smaller footprint, but also need pedestrians and student traffic to you know, duck into a store. Whereas on Tenny Mountain Highway, they're envisioning more large-scale users that require more land for the building and parking, and don't necessarily require that pedestrian interaction for their business. And I think that this is obviously very well suited for that. So, you know, that's kind of a summary of what I saw. I'm happy to discuss other items you might like to address with the master plan or the plan in general. You know, we're here to just kind of bring it before you. We're hoping to come very soon for a full application package, and wanted to gain any feedback we could at this point.
So I just have a couple things I'd like to say before we open it up to the board. First of all, thanks for digging into the master plan that much. We just finished this, so it's nice to hear it come back at us.
Looks good.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
And just so, I think, John, maybe you were on the board when the whole flood compensation, were you on the planning board then?
Yes.
Just make sure the rest of the board knows that the compensation pit, the pre-pad development, I'm not saying this the right way, but the building pad at its current grade has already been pre-approved. So it's not the compensation pit or anything like that that's on the table. It's just the building and maybe anything else that's gonna bring it up to grade on that spot. So just make sure that's clear to everyone. Did I totally hash that, or does that make sense to everyone?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Questions from the board?
Looks good to me. I have no question.
And I don't know if this is too early to ask this, I know, or too late, but, or the appropriate time, because I don't know if that's exactly what we're discussing, but I guess my concern is we have two big supermarkets already in Plymouth, which is kind of a small town. And I'm sure you guys have done plenty of market research. Do you have some kind of numbers that would show that Plymouth can support 3 big supermarkets?
I don't know
Anybody?
if John wants to speak to that. I mean, I'm sure that they've done the research.
Yeah, I'm sure there's been market research done.
I'm John Matthews. I'm a real estate consultant for Market Basket, and I've been a consultant with them for decades. I'm happy to be here this evening. And we have a tremendous store in Tilton, 28 miles down the road. And we do know how much of that business comes from up here. It's substantial. We think that would be great convenience to the folks up here in Plymouth and the area, not to have to go down to Tilton, but I know they do. And I think that we just add to the synergy and to the life of the economic climate here in Plymouth. People like to have choices when they shop. And what we're bringing here is a state-of-the-art market basket. The closest one to here that would have all of the features that's proposed here is in Hooksett, New Hampshire, and in Rochester. Those are recent stores. But we're bringing a different product to the market than people get at the competitors that you've mentioned. And we think competition's good. It keeps everybody sharp.
Yep.
Thank you.
And can just to clarify to the board, my concern, I mean, I'm sure Market Basket is going to be fine. Walmart's giant, I think they're going to be fine. My concern would be if we couldn't support 3 grocery stores. I think the one that would suffer would be the anchor store at Hatch Plaza, which already is struggling a little bit. If for some reason that went down, I think, and we ended up with, say, a dollar store as our anchor store in the Hatch Plaza, I think that would be a pretty sad section of Plymouth. And you can see those kind of shopping centers, and I have no idea, I mean, you know, if this is even a concern. I just think it's something that the planning board should consider.
Could I make a comment?
Let me just address this really quickly, that I don't think it's necessarily under our purview to determine what business can go in where, as long as the zoning ordinance allows for that type of business in that spot. Because I mean, I hear your concern, and it's something that I think about as well, but our job is to, if it's a permitted use in the zone that it's in, we're not the ones that determine what's good for business, in the same way that when we approved the application for the Irving that was right next to the BP stations, the same deal, so.
Yeah, I would just like to say it's not just Plymouth. We've got so many towns around here that are going to be coming into Market Basket, Hannaford, Walmart. There's going to be certain things that people want in each different one. And we do have a lot of surrounding towns that I know are going to, because this is the hub, so they'll be here.
I'd like to comment, just to take a look at the number of Vermont tags we have also.
Other comments about that?
Not about that, but to kind of build off what Chris started. So I think I also really appreciate that you guys are here now. You've been here enough for other projects, that you have a sense for some of the stuff that we're concerned with, and you started to address that, which is helpful. I think just like there are things that are outside of our scope, even though it's something that comes to mind and it's something we may want to talk about that we might not be able to weigh in on, we do have to follow the site plan regs. And so just looking at the site plan regs today and looking at the scale of this development, the number of acres of impervious surface that are going to be added here, the last time we had a development of this size, it was a regional impact. It was determined as a regional impact. And so that's a decision that the board would have to make. If you feel that it meets the RSA for regional impact, then that other town should be notified based on impact of stormwater and lighting and traffic and all of that. It just gives them a chance to come to a planning board meeting when it is proposed and provide any feedback if they want. And I don't know, John, do you remember if any towns commented when Walmart was deemed a regional impact?
I wasn't on the board. I
Okay.
wasn't here at the time,
okay.
so I can't comment on that.
So that was one thing, just from reading through our site plan regs again today. The other things I think Will is aware of related to stormwater and lighting and landscaping and pedestrian access. The one question I had about stormwater versus flood storage, and I'm just not familiar with the permit that you have through DES, but to what degree can you take stormwater that you're holding on site and put it into those compensation areas without impacting the ability of flood storage?
Right, so the chamber systems are going to hold a large quantity of that stormwater. So during very large events, like the 100-year storm event, for instance, we may be discharging into the floodplain as it's being filled up. But for the most part, for 50-year events and fewer, we're looking at holding and infiltrating all of that water, so it's not really leaving, or it might be leaving at a very slow rate. So yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, like as that pool fills up, we're discharging at the same time. But what we're doing is basically meeting the pre-existing peak rate of runoff, which is grass. So, our systems are designed to basically only allow water to come out at the same rate that it's going out now. So it's just like the grass, essentially, once it gets through our system.
So at the same rate or better.
Or slower, and almost certainly it's going to be, for most storm events, it's going to be slower or less, or like the volume will be zero because we're infiltrating all of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think that potentially could be an issue that people will have, so I just want to flag it.
And that's something that the state will certainly look at when we apply for that AOT permit.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, are these, sorry if I'm interrupting anyone, these are all on separate subdivided parcels, or are these all owned by, is it one, they're all subdivided into individual lots, right?
So this building will be on the same parcel as the liquor store. Mike received a special exception from the zoning board to allow 2 buildings on this one parcel. So that's the setup now. So McDonald's, Bank of New Hampshire, the hotel, and the convenience store are all on their individual lots. These 2 will be on the same larger parent parcel.
And this is quite a big parcel. It includes the floodplain, the compensation pit, everything.
Correct.
So I'm just curious about the percent impervious surface on the development. It's probably well under the zoning regs because there's so much.
Right.
This isn't a lot of impervious surface. It's just there's a lot of land adjacent to it.
Right. Yeah. How many acres is it? Off the top of my head, I don't. 67, yeah. 67 acres. So, and we're developing about 5 or 6, I think, something on that order, so.
But how much of it's floodplain? Of the 67? A
Most of
majority?
it, yeah.
I don't know if the zoning ordinance distinguishes between the.
It doesn't really refer to lot coverage,
for its
right?
impervious surface calculations,
Right.
unfortunately. Other questions from the board? Traffic. And is this still going to be, I mean, obviously what am I asking?
We're going through DOT for all of the intersection driveway approvals. We'll be applying for a driveway permit for the change in use.
Okay.
And so we'll be complying with all the requirements DOT inflicts upon us. So.
Traffic light as well, or?
Yeah.
That'll be up to DOT. So we're working through the process now with them for final design on that.
Is that because of the driveway that you mentioned before that you're trying to line up with, a potential future driveway across the street?
I mean, that won't, I guess the potential doesn't really impact the signal so much as we've set up the intersection for a 4-way intersection in the future. So it's just kind of good planning practice. We know that there's a large parcel across the road, and so it's set up. In fact, I think it shows up on there. I'm not sure.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, that wasn't necessarily intended to be on there, but yeah, that's the future setup so that it will be aligned.
Other questions? Anything else?
Yeah, I know this is a pretty big project, and so I guess, we just want to know if there's anything in particular out of the ordinary that you'd like us to provide with the application package. We're going to put together everything that's on the checklist, and if there's anything else that you'd like to see, I guess we'd just like to know so that we can be prepared.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like, you have come before us a number of times
Right.
that I feel like you kind of know what we're going to say, so you've addressed a lot of those things. We haven't talked about sidewalk access all the way to Tenny Mountain Highway through this, which I don't see on here. Does the board have any opinion about sidewalk access returning back to Tenny Mountain near the Because there isn't anything with the Irving station.
We talked about it when they were here for that, yeah. And part of the discussion was that you said that you'd probably be back in for a bigger development, but it'd be good to see that connection all the way through.
I would think so, yeah. That's certainly in the master plan too, is the idea of pedestrian connectivity and recognizing there is not necessarily a sidewalk on Tenny Mountain Highway, but we have to start somewhere.
So just so we can understand that rationale, is the idea that the town intends to put a sidewalk on Tenny Mountain Highway?
The idea is right
Near
now, if you
future,
go out
or-
in the morning, go out at like 6 in the morning, there are people that are walking from town out there. And so it's both people from town that are crossing Tenny Mountain Highway however they can, and then when they get to the other side, it provides them a safe way to get into the site to any of the businesses, as well as people who are at the hotel or one of the other establishments who maybe want to go to a different business while they're in there without using their car.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of both.
Yeah, it's just tricky because I know, we have the sidewalk now at McDonald's that kind of doesn't provide any pedestrian means to cross the road, right? So we've dumped them out there, and then they're kind of in an uncontrolled environment on the state highway. So, we can, if the board feels strongly about that, we can provide that sidewalk. But I think I guess we wanted to kind of understand where you're coming from and just make sure that we're providing a safe means for people to get, because they're not really, I understand the future plan. It's just that right now they would be crossing to the Woods or Harris Furniture, right?
Or CVS.
Well, then they have to walk back across the highway. I would assume they would come back. You see what I'm saying? I guess there's certainly a space there for a sidewalk, and we can provide that space.
So I guess it's not necessarily just okay, so maybe somebody from Market Basket isn't going to get out of their car, walk across the street and go to Harris Family Furniture.
Right.
However, what if Harris Family Furniture turns into Harris Family Fine Dining? And there's people in the...
We can only hope.
Yeah. You've already got plenty of dining room tables. But there perhaps are people in that hotel that would want to cross the street there. So it's not just what's there now. We have, and if we don't put the sidewalk in, we've got this restaurant here and we're not going to put a sidewalk in because there isn't one in. So this is something that's been a priority set forth by this board, by the town. It's in the master plan. It's something we have to start somewhere, or else we just have a ton of businesses with no pedestrian connectivity.
And it's been an issue in every aspect of this development. We've had to talk about we've had to advocate for pedestrians. And
the other part of that, I think, to put it in sort of context, is without starting to put in connecting sidewalks, what we're doing is creating one more environment that is totally off limits to people, even though people will try to walk there. And when you see someone walking there, you're not thinking, oh, that person's out for a nice walk. You're thinking, why is this person walking here? So it'd be nice not to create one more place like that. And in other words, create a place for automobiles only. And which it is right now, which is what the issue you're having is you're thinking, who would want to walk there? But I guess it would be nice to somehow create or turn that into a place that people could walk.
Or bike too. We have an increasingly.
Or bike too, and it's an awful place to
a
bike.
population that's increasingly wanting to bike to their destinations, whether they're at downtown or on Tenny Mountain Highway.
Right.
And that's going to take a lot of work. It's that one sidewalk isn't going to do it by itself, but if we don't have that sidewalk, it's that much more difficult.
And keep in mind, we're a board that doesn't like impervious surface, but we're advocating for more impervious surface, so.
Can I
take away a little bit of grass?
A question kind of unrelated is sort of coming from the Conservation Commission. You own all the way, or this development owns all the way to the river, right?
Correct.
But that property is not going to be developed because it's too close to the river. Would you consider somehow allowing public access to the river somewhere through this development? And I guess what I'm thinking is creating lots of egress to the river and actually having some kind of riverfront trail, walkway, recreation area, because the river's not going to be developed. Is that something that you might consider?
To answer your question,
although the intent may be very well, I would concern myself with liability if there ever was a problem.
Mhm.
We have individual owners out there, like the hotel. I don't own that piece of property. So I would have to get with Market Basket and pretty much everybody to see what the consensus of interest is going to be. And if we do have people out there and there is a problem, always run into something. So not a bad question. Maybe we give it more thought if you'd like, and I'd be glad to. I'm not saying no to it, but certainly I got to take the temperature of everybody involved.
It's definitely another master plan item on that future recreational trails map. There's kind of a Baker River corridor. The only other thing I would mention, as you're reconfiguring things and thinking about the stormwater is, within the developed portion, knowing that you have a lot of other acreage, recognizing you have a lot of other acreage, I would not consider this a significant amount of green space or landscaping. So like any little things we can do to incorporate snow storage and landscaping and have that part of your solution for stormwater, I think we would be supportive, especially if it helps you meet the stormwater regs. Because it is, like you said, it's a significant space there that you're having to manage water off of.
And
Mike McGinley's done a tremendous job with this project, and he's created a nice retail node of a variety of uses. And once you're on that site, it's very pedestrian friendly. And so I think that the fact that everything is so compact makes it walkable. And that's kind of what it is. Market Basket's not usually the last building into a project. In this case, it is for a variety of reasons. But I think that the fact that you've got a nice group of uses that are all compatible, the fact that it's close together, that lends itself to the whole pedestrian friendliness once you're there.
yeah, I would also welcome, and that we don't have any sort of, this is not part of our site plan or our zoning ordinance, but any sort of innovative stormwater management technique that alleviates the pressure on the sort of underground system. They have the things that encourage infiltration as much as possible. How's the compensation pit working?
I think it's working fine.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah. I haven't been out, I'm not out all the time, but, haven't heard of any issues. Yeah, I mean, the underground chambers are a solution for parking lots. I mean, we do them a lot in situations like this, and they do infiltrate the stormwater, I understand and we will be providing landscaping for sure, but there's limited space for open channel type of devices here. So.
All right. I think all of my points are covered. I'm assuming we'll have the town engineer review the application once it comes and we'll get his report. And I feel like we often ask for a traffic study, but really if you're going to DOT for the driveway permit, that seems like that's the most appropriate. 'Cause I don't know how to interpret a traffic study. I think the one question that I'd like to, not for the developer, but for the board, is this concept of regional impact. And that's something we should probably talk about this evening. Not necessarily while you stand there. But,
I'm comfortable.
Yeah. You've been here before. Any other questions from the board before we maybe start talking about regional impact? All right. Thank you. I appreciate you coming in and checking most of the boxes before we are able to ask
absolutely.
questions.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Market Basket, for coming to Plymouth. Thank
Oh,
you, Mike.
definitely, definitely.
So I have a few things after this before we should have time to open it up for the public comments at the end, but I just want to get through the rest of our, my list. But I would, if we do want to consider this at a regional impact, that means that we feel that we're obligated to let our adjacent communities know that this is going in, and let them know when this project comes to site plan review that they're welcome to come and voice their opinion. I would like to get a vote. This was a conversation that I think was, were you here for the conversation, Steve, with the board?
No.
There was a discussion about regional impact. We aren't notified for large projects, so why should we be notifying others? It's like the sidewalks, you gotta start somewhere. So, I like the idea of notifying other towns, because how would we expect them to do the same if we're not doing that for them? So, what does the rest of the board think?
It's in the master plan.
Yep, and it's section 6 of our site plan, if anyone wants to see it. I have a copy here. Happy to pass it along.
A copy here as well.
And the kind of impacts we would be concerned of would be like runoff going into the river and going downstream to Ashland, or?
Well, I think it's multifaceted, because the way that our language, which may be slightly different than what's in the state RSA, but what it talks about is relative size of the development. It could be dwelling units or non-residential. It talks about proximity to borders of neighboring communities, transportation networks, light, noise, and other impacts, proximity to aquifers and surface waters. I mean, we just hit a lot of these, and I think I think fortunately for us, it's a large development that we're getting to consider. But because it is, I think if we do want to have the same level of communication with other communities, it's at least let them know in a formal way. The way this is written, it says we would, after review of the application, so that under section B, so we might have to wait until we receive an actual application to do it. And then it's quick. It goes out to the Regional Planning Commission, I believe the RSA says as well. So I don't know if, I'm assuming it would just go out to Lakes Region because we're a Lakes Region community. And the town of Rumney would find out about it.
To all affected municipalities and executive director of appropriate regional planning agencies. So it's probably gonna go to 2 regional planning agencies. And
so our LRPC and North Country
I would
Council.
think so, just because the bordering communities are in North Country Council.
Right.
So, I will let Brian know that that is something we'd like to see, and we'll.
I don't know if everyone else wants to see it. I just wanted to flag it because I think to not talk about it would be us not doing our job, but.
Thank you. What does the rest of the board think?
I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Shall we make, we don't need to make a motion, is that general consensus on the board? Okay. All right, does anyone think we need to make a motion?
We're not voting on anything, so.
It says
No,
that.
oh, I'm just saying, it's.
Give Brian a heads up.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give him a heads up that that's, yeah.
That seems good. Gives them a chance to think about it too.
Can I just ask a question on that? Is that something that's going to happen? So you said you would notify them after we submit the application. Will you still be able to make a decision at the first hearing if we are in a position to do that? Or is this going to kick us into a 2-hearing situation?
Here's what it says. If after a review of the application by the community planner or by the board, with appropriate notice as provided for, the application is found of regional impact, she'd be sent within 14 days prior to the date of such a meeting. So,
Okay. So we'll be submitting 21 days, and then you'll have 7 days to submit to the other regions, and then
yeah.
and then they just have the ability to attend the hearing. Is that basically?
It just brings them to the table. To me, that doesn't say that it has to be at a site plan review public hearing. To me, it just says when we look at it.
Right, and because it can be the community planner or the board, it would give Brian a chance to do that. Right.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna have the board go through a couple other business items, and then we will let the public speak if they're interested in speaking about this application. The first is the I sent an email out kind of late, or a couple emails out later this afternoon about the local source water protection grant that the Lakes Region Planning Commission is planning on submitting an application. It's due on November 1st. This is to help us craft help support drinking water sources in the town through our zoning ordinance. This is something that our planning commission that's something that they do, so they can help us determine where in our zoning ordinance, we can help to support drinking water. I have information about the grant, Bonnie, especially for you if you'd like to look at it. I also have a copy of the letter that I drafted. I worked with the executive director at the LRPC to do this, as well as looking at what Lisa had written.
Is this a totally different letter than
Totally different. I thought it would be weird if we both sent identical letters. So I reached out.
This was the original plan.
I think you were cheating.
I'm sure, it happens all the time.
So is that the Conservation Commission is submitting a letter
They
in
already did.
support?
Yep.
Okay.
So with the approval and a vote from the board, I will, unless there's any typos, I would like to say that I originally said we unsupport their application. That's what I had written in there originally. But that typo's been corrected, so, yeah. So,
It happens.
yeah,
I thought it read really well.
okay. So, sure. Does anyone else need to look at this, or do we want to make a motion to support this application? The grant application, to support the Lakes Region Planning Commission's application.
And I'll make a motion to write a letter.
Good question, please.
Well, this is the first time I'm seeing it.
Oh, do you need to read it, Bonnie?
Well, I can't read that whole thing right now.
One of the things about it, it's not a binding document. We're just saying we're supporting someone so it doesn't really tie our hands to anything. Is that not correct?
Okay, but basically, it's just stating that there's an interest in keeping the water clean and having good drinking water. Like I said, I haven't looked at it, so you have.
Yeah, the source water protection grant is one way that the state funds to drinking water protection. And sometimes it's through land conservation. So the idea is you protect land around wells, especially public drinking, or surface water, like Lake Massabesic is the water supply for Manchester. So they also do land protection, but this is focused specifically on the zoning ordinance in the town. So the LRPC will dig into our zoning ordinance and look and help craft a drinking water protection ordinance in a way that adheres to the current state standards for drinking water protection.
And we would have, as a planning board, and the residents would have a say in that crafting, because we would have to take it forward to town meeting vote. So
Okay.
they wouldn't give us something that we don't feel we
Right.
could endorse.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Yep, okay. Well, I will fix that and print it if we approve this. And I should write that out anyway. All right. Is that sufficient for you, Bonnie?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I don't want to bully you into a.
No. You couldn't possibly.
I hope I never see that.
Me too.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion to support the LRPC's grant application?
I will make that motion.
Second.
Did you read it?
No, I don't need to read the whole thing to understand what that is.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I will correct the one typo that I put LRPC in the wrong. It says LPRC, so I'll fix that. Oh, look, we have the regional impact. Oh, my gosh. Well, this was in the pile of stuff. This is information about why consider regional impacts. So if we want to brush up on
Timely.
that, this was in the pile of stuff.
These are copies?
Yep, so you can all take one. I'll send them back to you. I have the signature page for the master plan. I didn't put you on there, I put
No,
Bill Bolton.
no,
I hope that's okay.
Because, yeah.
It's not because we don't appreciate you.
Bill worked on it, and so that's why we set it up
Yeah.
for him to continue,
Would be
even though I was
easier.
selecting for him.
It'd be easier if it was you, because then you could just sign it tonight, but.
You can sign Bill's name.
Yeah.
No. I'm
So
not
if
in
everyone
that
can just sign
business.
this before they leave this evening, that would be great. And then let me just make sure I've got everything on my list. Signature page. Okay. Anything else from the board before I open up for public comments. All right. Are there any comments from the public this evening? Unrelated or related to the agenda? If you'd like to speak, please come up to the podium and state your name.
Thank you, Board. And the first comment would be about our capacity. Right now, the town of Plymouth has food service hospitality capacity for a town of 38,000. It's calculated based on the number of tables and seats per restaurant. Obviously, we don't have 38,000 people, but we do have choices. And we also get a major influx of population during summer months and tourism, which accounts for those businesses feeling that it's financially viable to provide that service. So having this food storage and display retail is not going to put anybody, I think, out of business, and I think it would actually add the balance of freedom of choice. The other thing is this has been through a lot of processing as far as environmental mitigation, evaluation. That piece of property right now gets rained on, and all that rain seems to find its way to the river. And I understand that once they, of course, put a structure there, then you have a consolidated volume of water and velocity. And of course, they've got their design system of containment and regulated release. And obviously, that's going to be an oversight of DES as far as the system being appropriately designed. But since this whole project has gone through a substantial technical review, and this particular event was pre-approved and already considered approved, that any updates on any specifications on the laws of DES rules to get a review is fine, but I think the whole site has been very well thought out. The floodway storage area has been laid out. It's and so I think the whole process has been very well reviewed over the years, and so just seem to not get too starting from day one, let's not start it all over again type of mindset. Let's just look at the whole total package as it has been over the last 5 or 10 years now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tanya Chance. I would just like to address a couple of things I heard tonight. Excuse me. Why I admire the ideas that the board had, like for Market Basket, the sidewalks, the bike paths, and all of that. I think that's fabulous. But in fairness, as a business owner myself, I don't think that's quite fair to put all that burden on Market Basket, especially for CVS or the furniture store or whatever. Excuse me. If the board would like that, I think that should be a shared expense and a shared endeavor than to put the burden on just one business. So I would hope that you guys would consider that, if that is something you guys want to go to in the future, that it should be a shared expense from all the businesses. So I just think it would be unfair. Also, as a resident, competition, all we have is Hannaford's and Walmart. We are one of the people who go to Tilton. And Hannaford's, it's expensive. It's expensive for college students, this is a college town. I mean, if it's expensive for my husband and I, certainly the college students find it just as expensive. I don't think it's our business or even the board's business, and don't misunderstand me, you represent us, and I appreciate that. But if it has an impact on Hannaford's or Walmart or anyone else, that's competition, that's the way the world works, and it's not our business to say, to support Hannaford's over Market Basket or Market Basket over Hannaford's, vice versa. So I say every man for himself. And so So that was just what I would like to say. I think it's a good idea that they're coming. I like competition. I wish we had it in many other things for our small town, like cable. So, but that's another meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Joyce Weston. I am also totally in favor of this proposal. I want to commend you for the idea of thinking about complete streets as you develop this. It's unfortunate it wasn't thought of when CVS went in, but it's a start, and I think it's something we have to think about, and bicycles as well, because you're right, we are moving into an area where we need to think about traffic patterns for all kinds of transportation. I also like the idea of linkage to development of the river, because I think if we're trying to retain our youth in this community, we need to have sports activities, and the river is a resource that we should develop. I come from Boston, and I worked in development in Boston, and whenever a developer came in and wanted to do something in Boston, we said, okay, but you give back to the community. And one of the ways you can give back is something with linkage to something that helps the whole community. So I wouldn't give up that thought. We need to develop along the Baker River. I loved seeing that in the master plan, and I think, nibble away at it. You might not get it all at once, but we need to nibble away at it. I have one thought, and that is about the lighting. I'm sorry I wasn't here for every hearing, but we have light pollution up at Walmart because of the fact that they are too low against the ground, and they are never turned off. I didn't hear what the plan was for the lighting in this development, but if it's possible to do any kind of light sensor thing like we do in our own homes, that would be my recommendation, and I'd like to hear what kind of lighting they have proposed. Thanks.
Yeah, you did say it before, but yeah, just, if you don't mind just saying what it is.
They're LED cutoff fixtures, meaning that all the light goes down. There's no upward. If you're ever in an airplane coming over a city, you can see parking lots that have what you just described at Walmart, and then you see others where all the light is down. And that's the state of the art now.
And are they on a sensor system?
For Market Basket, our stores operate on a computerized system. The lights go off approximately a half hour after the store closes. And we operate that from a central location. We don't run 24-hour stores. Stores close typically 9 o'clock at night, and then the lights go out, once the employees are out. Thank you.
Good answer. Thank you.
And I'm assuming there'll be a lighting plan when you submit your application. Yeah. Yes, please.
My name is Peter French, and my wife and I have a commercial piece of property when we are abutters to the proposed Market Basket. What I've seen so far, and I've seen a lot of developments, it's a nice, clean, attractive section now. It's going to grow. Not only is it going to make competition, which is good, it's going to have jobs. We need jobs for the people in this community and the surrounding communities. As I see it, Market Basket, there are a lot of people I know that travel all the way to Tilton now. They're going to stay here, and we're going to get more traffic from the surrounding areas. Tax money. We all pay taxes in town. It's very expensive. It's unfortunate that this particular community is burdened with a lot of free land without being taxed. Mm-hmm. And we need all the commercial things we can get done. rather than just regular houses being overtaxed, businesses being overtaxed. Compared with other towns and cities, we have a higher burden. Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment?
I'd like to add something that I think over the years, 35 years of the highway, Tenny Mountain Highway Corridor study, there's been a lot of plans by the state looking at expanding the road to a 4-lane. There are always different potential plans, but I've seen 10-year plans and they've been deferred. And I think we're at a point, the planning board, the town of Plymouth is having issues with trying to get this development properly put in with pedestrian traffic flow, others that are going to be coming online. And we, the people of the town of Plymouth and this board, do not know what the state's current plan is on addressing the utilization rate of Tenny Mountain Highway. So I feel you're in a spot where you're trying to make the appropriate decisions to address the issues of transportation, be the pedestrians or cars, on a system that you really don't know what the plan is by the state. And I don't know if you have the capability of, through this permit process that they're going to be making this interchange, to try to get a hold of the state's highway planning to see where the state is on Tenny Mountain's upgrade. Because it's, you know, this is 25 years in the works that I've seen it, been on the committees on it, and yet I know financially it keeps moving down. The 10-year plan goes to the 15-year plan, and it goes to the 20-year plan. But we're held, the town, this board is held to try to address the issues of safety, traffic, pedestrian vehicles on a road that you don't control. And we don't know what the state's going to do. And so you're going to try to get sidewalks or intersections done with incomplete information. So I don't know if it's appropriate at this time to impress upon the state highway system, their engineer in Section 2, whatever, Division 2, as to we've reached a level of saturation in this particular area that it's going to make it physically impossible for even an applicant to comply with what we would be considered best management practices for sidewalks or road widths and such. And I think we need to get something from the state as to where the state is on their upgrade plan for Tenny Mountain. Because you're held to trying to do this, and this, to me, appears to be a big unknown.
Thank you. Anything else from the audience? Anything else from the board? Who wants the honors this evening?
I think we should get with Brian. That's a good point that Frank brings up, is, you know, the plans for 25 for any width expansion or what they're going to be doing. I know they're going to be repaving what's out there now, I think next year. But you know, again, I mean, if somebody ends up putting in sidewalks and they're going to add a lane or two, you know, it's money not well spent, you know.
True. I totally agree with John. that I think Frank makes a good point and that we should inquire with DOT, but I also want to clarify that any sidewalks we've talked about, like with the other developments here, are Boulder
Or
Point.
internal.
Or within the site,
Yeah,
which
right,
is part of
right.
our site plan regulations. We're not asking them to put a sidewalk along Tenny Mountain Highway.
Right, but I know when CVS came in, and Burger King and that, they were wanting to expand those sidewalks.
Right.
Down to 25 and, have a crosswalk across, and so there was some connectivity there that they were looking at.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think we need to do that.
Maybe we could get a DOT person to come and chat with us, just if there's a plan. Maybe there is no plan, who knows? Or immediate plans.
And can the towns give input to the state?
I mean, I'm sure we can.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can give it, but it's not well received.
Well,
I mean,
what we envision, that's probably
Right.
good information for them.
Right. Well, I think they understand the things that we've been looking at as a town, but I think, the select board, we have a meeting Monday night, and I'll bring this up, that we get a letter to DOT explaining, future development further out and everything else. It would be advantageous for us, and for the people coming in, what they can expect out there, so.
Can I sit this with you so I don't have to
Sure,
remember?
yep, I'll take care of it.
I think it would be a good time to do it too, because I don't remember the last time we've had that kind of conversation with planning at DOT, but we did at least one, and I think we updated it, a corridor study of 25 with North Country Council back when June was a planner. I think we updated it at one point. We never made any of the zoning
Yeah,
changes.
I think I still have that at the house, and that's probably been 10 years now.
And then I know at one point DOT came with the roundabout proposal for Tenny Mountain
Yeah,
Highway,
exactly.
and there
I
was
was-
landowner opposition, and we didn't have the political will or didn't want that design solution. So now we have all these lights at the end of Highland Street, at 25, and at Smith Bridge.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So those are all things we can look at as the town grows, and
Right.
and need to see what they're looking at, what their DOT is proposing, if they have some ideas or some thoughts. And so I'll get with the board, and we'll get a letter up to DOT to handle that.
Anything else from the board? Okay, who wants to do the honors this evening?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting is over.